I do appreciate the Western Caucus Foundation and everyone involved for putting this together. I see Representative Newhouse coming in right now.
Do you notice how we've been coming in on age?
Only you would notice that, Mark. But I know it may be hard to believe that Mark Wayne actually has friends in Congress, but he's one of my good friends here, and he's a neighbor. His district in eastern Oklahoma borders my district in western Arkansas, and he's not only a friend, but he's a tremendous resource on tribal issues. He and others, Tom Cole, has been a remarkable resource for me, so I appreciate that. And that's really the attitude that I'm trying to bring to the Resources Committee on Indian Country and Indian issues, is to learn and to go out to meet people and to hear from the field, from people that are actually on the front line on these issues, what's going on and how we can be helpful here in Congress. And also, I know that we can learn a lot from tribes that can benefit the rest of the country in areas, especially the federal government, stuff like forest management. You know, a good friend of mine, Phil Rigdon, who we went to forestry school together from Yakima Nation, and he's one of the leading experts on using fire to manage forests, period. And as I travel around, I see really good forest management on tribal lands and terrible forest management on Forest Service lands. So we should be learning from each other and adopting policies that are going to be beneficial. And we should actually be giving tribes more authority to do management on the Forest Service lands. You know, tribal sovereignty is obviously a big issue. You know, and the government-to-government relationship between tribes and the federal government is something that we have to respect. We have to uphold that. That falls into self-determination, which I know is a big issue. That we've actually got bills out there to help promote that. Talking about promoting things, economic activity. We need to do things like Mark Wayne was talking about, where we promote different kinds of activity and diversification in Indian country, and make sure that those opportunities are out there to encourage continued growth and diversification. An issue that we face across the federal government, I believe, is overregulation, and the tribes are not immune to that. We've got to work on ways where government's actually helping and not hindering, and that's a big issue that I won't necessarily try to speak for Mark Wayne and Dan, but I know that as conservatives, that's something we continually work for, is to make government work for the people and not the other way around. You know, dialogue and consultation, I think, is key. It's key to building relationships in anything, and I want to make sure that we're doing that on the Natural Resources Committee on all these different issues. And I'm going to be a little bit more brief than I intended to because of the vote series, but again, I want to thank all the tribal representatives, thank the Western Caucus Foundation, and want you all to know that we're here and we want to help, we want to understand, and we want to do what's right so that life's better for everyone. And I'm going to yield to...
Brief isn't bad.
And what?
Brief is not bad.
Brief is not bad.
Yeah, especially.
What's the way to get invited
back? You can say
back?
twice as much if you talk faster, though.
Like you do.
Is
that my cue?
I just wanted to make sure you could follow along.
I could. You use small words, too, so I could understand it. I appreciate that.
And I'll yield to Dan.
Thank you, Bruce, and thanks, Mark Wayne. And just so you know, I'm here to introduce them and allow them to speak, so I apologize for being late. They're smart enough to catch a ride over from the Capitol. I walked, so that tells you something, I'm sure.
I ran.
Did you? Oh, you ran?
No.
Let me say first, I'm chairman of the Western Caucus. Maybe you know that already. Happy to work with Darrell Henry and a great group of over 70 members of Congress to put forth a platform for us to really raise up issues that are important to those of us in the Western United States, but really across the country. Big partners in that should be and are our tribal friends. I want to start out quickly by recognizing Mr. Joseph, new chairman of the Colville Tribe, who we've spoken on the phone, but have not met personally. I don't believe, have we, Andy? But I do want to say happy birthday to you. I don't know if you've already talked about that or not, but I hope you're having a great day. But
And the day's going by good, Dan. I really appreciate the call that you give me. When we had our fire here and right here, it almost burned up the town in Nisquelam where I live, and luckily we had a wind shift that shifted at the right time, but it did burn up quite a bit of our forest when it did shift back up towards the mountains. But I appreciate the call, and anyway, I'm really interested in the meeting. I do have something to read, and I guess let me know when it's time and I can
absolutely. Absolutely, we'll do that. I won't be long at all. I just, like I said, wanted to be here to introduce my good friends here and talk about the not only the importance of the Western Caucus and the platform that provides us, but the partnership we have with our Indian friends, as well as friends on the appropriate committees, natural resources, energy and commerce, all of these things that come together pertaining to the important issues that we face in the Western United States. So I'm committed to making sure that our tribal friends have a seat at the table. Even before I was Western Caucus chairman, I've been engaged, as you well know, Andy, in many of the issues that are important to Indian country. You brought up forest management. We live through these smoky summers way too often. We've got to come to a better solution there and commit to getting that work done. On the issue of the missing and murdered Indigenous women, and I don't know that that's something that normally comes up in a Western Caucus setting, but that's an issue that I've been steeped in for several years now, and hoping to find some real positive solutions there, and we've made some progress. But I just want to underscore the fact that we appreciate and we understand that folks in Indian country are our partners, and we want to be able to engage with them and finding solutions for us to move forward together. So thanks for being part of this forum. And Daryl, I'm not sure when we can turn to the chairman. I'll leave that up to you, but I appreciate being here.
I think we can turn to him right now for question, and then we'll have Sam Cohen with the Chumash tribe up next to ask a question.
Okay, Andy, the floor is yours.
You're muted, buddy.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank the committee for allowing, inviting us to participate. Our Representative Dan Newhouse and Ranking Member Bruce Westerman and Mark Wayne Mullen, thank you for being there. Also, it's very important, on behalf of our tribes to engage in providing some testimony. The Colville tribe, we had two big wildfires. Actually, we've had quite a few this summer. Two of them burned over 70,000 acres. In 2015, we had fires that kind of collided and ended up burning over 500,000 acres. And as you know, the price of timber right now is at a real high. And as I look out my window at the fire that burnt last year, I could see and I could see the damage that the fire did in 2015. All that potential revenue that would have came to our tribe burned up, and it's really a shame that our tribe isn't able to gain revenue that probably could have been saved if we would have did more fuel reduction. what are the resources we would like to see is more funding for thinning projects. You know, along the highways, they used to do the WUI work. And that is where they thin out along the highway in case some, you know, in case in case a fire is caused by human, you know, along the highways, but they can also kind of use that as a safe, excuse me, a safety zone, you know, where they use it for like the fire lines. It's easier to control if along the roadways that the forest is thinned out. And anyway, so thinning our forest, and I'd like to hear about you know, how the Yakimas, our tribe does as well, prescribe burns in some of our forest where we they might thin it and pile it, or the loggers might thin it and pile it, and then they burn up those piles during the winter months when there's snow on the ground, and it lessens the fuels that a fire would take. But there's another issue that we deal with on our reservation, and that's a lack of law enforcement resources. It continues to be a problem on our reservation. We have 1.4 million acres of land base and a small number of officers that patrol it. The Bureau of Indian Affairs has a responsibility to provide this service, but only funds the activity at a fraction of need. As a result, we cannot pay officers competitive salaries, and we end up losing them to neighboring site or cities and town. It's almost like we're a training site for officers, and you know, they find out they can make, you know, twice as much and live, you know, raise their families, you know, off the reservation once they get a badge and a training that the BIA offers. Anyway, as a result, most of our tribes are in a similar situation. I was wondering if the caucus was aware of this issue. You know, the local cities like Elmer City, Nispelum, Omak, Inchalim, and Keller, at one time all used to have their own law enforcement officers, and it seems like once the tribe got BIA officers, the counties and the state kind of, I don't know if they eliminated the funding that you know would normally pay a city for their officers, but you know that maybe
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to, in due of time, sorry to mean to cut you off, because we have votes that are going to have to run, so I'd like to make sure they're able to answer your question, and we get Mr. Cohen a chance to talk as well. So thank you. Your comments were great. I appreciate that.
I'd just respond, Mr. Joseph, that we are, yes, absolutely aware of the conundrum you find yourselves in, proving to be a training ground for personnel that can find greener pastures after they get their badges. And that's something the federal government does struggle with, I gotta say, not just in this area, but even look at the VA trying to attract and keep qualified individuals in many parts of the federal government. We just don't keep up as well as we should with private industry. So we're aware, we're trying to work on that problem, but thank you for raising that. I think we need to be reminded of that challenge that we face.
I'll speak quickly about the fire management and forest management. You know, the key thing is it's not always necessarily how you approach it on a specific site, but the fact that you're actually doing it. You know, even if you do it wrong, and you get 50% better than where you are, you're a lot better than if you do nothing, and that's what's happening on the federal lands. But the good news is we know how to do proper management. You talked about harvesting and stacking the brush into piles and burning it in the wet season. That's certainly an acceptable practice. There's controlled burns once you thin. The science is out there, and guys like Phil Rigdon that I mentioned, they know how to look at the landscape and implement that. But that's happening on tribal lands for the most part, but it's not happening on Forest Service lands. And those fires start on the Forest Service, and then they get on other lands and do damage to them. So in order to get Mr. Cohen before we have to leave, because I think we've got about 4 minutes.
You got about 4 minutes. So, hey, this is Sam Cohen with the Shumash. If you want to jump in here with a quick question and for the members.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for visiting, well, many of your members of your caucus for visiting California and going to Santa Maria and reviewing the new air attack planes to help fight forest fires here in California. It's a very big issue. Chairman Khan regrets he couldn't be on the call today, but he also wants to thank you for visiting the Chumash Reservation. Some of your members and your staff were able to do that on their way back from Santa Maria. And then third, I'd like to ask your assistance with the growing politicization of the process for federal recognition of new tribes. There are many tribes not following the rigorous federal acknowledgement process, and we ask your assistance in maintaining the integrity of this federal acknowledgement process. This would also maintain the integrity of the government-to-government relationship between the federal government and federally recognized tribes. Thank you very much.
Sam, as an enrolled member of Cherokee Nation, I couldn't agree more. The integrity of truly recognizing federal tribes needs to stay put. However, we'd also need to look at how we get those ones that was overlooked. And sometimes that, you have, and this is what I call it, you have some that are trying to be opportunists, that are trying to come in, that they don't need to be federally recognized because either they broke off or they're trying to come in because there's a population base and they want to come in and put a casino in and reap those benefits. But there's a lot of tribes that have been overlooked and they have true claim to it, and the process has been so ridiculous that it's very difficult for them to climb that hill. And so we got to find some type of happy medium to where we can do that. And I say one of the biggest hindrances is even the ones that deserve to be fairly recognized, it becomes territorial for the other tribes in that area. And we can't do that. Either the tribes are have the actual claim or not, and we got to leave the monetary aspect out of it, because we're all in this fight together. All the tribes are fighting together for recognition, for sovereignty, and we allow greed, because sometimes, Sam, you know that sometimes greed gets in the way from being able to get a true tribe that needs to be federally recognized. That gets in the way. But then there's other ones that are trying to be greed on the other way and try to scoot around the process. So I agree with you, but I think in Indian country we need to do better to band together to help those ones along that truly deserve to be federally recognized. And then we can also, if we build credibility with that, we can also band together when the ones that shouldn't be and say, no, this shouldn't happen and this is why.
Terrific. Thank you everybody for joining us here. Thank the members of the Western Caucus for being here to talk about these important issues that we deal with throughout the year. Thank you for joining us. Sorry we can't get to more questions.
Yeah,
but folks are here. But until next time, thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. Dan, I can give you a ride back if you'd like.
Oh, okay. Or Bruce, either way, I'm good.
Well, I mean, I don't want you
He might get off.
Oh, he doesn't know his way. That Indian sense of direction is not.